Thank you for purchasing a DF832 by Deltec Fitness. These instructions are to fit the DF832 to the DF830 plate-loaded lat attachment. In your box, you will have instructions, a hardware pack, J right-hand arm, K left-hand arm, I backrest, A arm mount, G floating pulley bracket, E right-hand cam, F left-hand cam, D swivel pulley mount, B fixed pulley bracket, C swivel pulley brackets, L cable, and an assortment of pulleys. We're going to start by bolting the arm mount and the swivel pulley mount to the lat attachment. We're going to use the M12 by 75mm bolts, washers, and lock nuts. First, thread the bolt through a washer, through the flange on the arm mount, then hang the arm mount from the top hole of the lat attachment. Next, slide over the swivel pulley bracket, then cap it off with a washer and nut. Once the top bolt has been installed, go ahead and install the bottom bolt, then use some 19mm wrenches to tighten both bolts down. I like to start by tightening the bottom bolt, then nudging the arm mount up and straight, then tightening the top. Next, we're going to install the swivel pulley brackets. The swivel pulley brackets have a flange on it that's offset from center. The flange will go down. We're going to need the extra long M12 bolts, washers, and nuts, and the 4 bushings. Slide a bushing into the top of the swivel pulley mount, then thread the bolt through a washer, through the top of the swivel pulley mount, then put another bushing on the bottom of the swivel pulley mount. After that, install the bushings in the swivel pulley bracket, then slide it over the bolt, followed by a washer and nut. Once the left-hand side has been installed, go ahead and install the right-hand side. Once both swivel pulley brackets have been installed, go ahead and tighten them down with some 19mm wrenches. You want to get it tight enough to where there's no play back and forth, but they still rotate freely. Next, we're going to install the cams on the arms. The cams have a stop that goes up, and on the outside of the cam, there's several holes for adjustment with the cable. The holes on the cam on the side will point toward the curve of the arm. Now it's time to install the other cam on the other arm to get ready for the next step. Sometimes the bushings can be tight, so it's helpful to rotate the cam as you slide it over the bolt. Remember, the outside holes point toward the curved section of the arm. Next, we're going to grab the large washers, the large nuts, and the large bushings. Slide one of the large bushings facing up over the bolt on the arm. Slide the arm and bushing up into the arm mount, then install the upper bushing, followed by a washer and the large nut. After the first side has been installed, go ahead and install the second side, then grab an adjustable wrench. When you're tightening down the arms, it'll be just like the swivel pulleys. You want it tight enough to where there's no play up and down, but loose enough to where they rotate freely. I like to tighten the arms until they don't move, and then back off 1/4 turn off the nut. Now that the arms have been installed, it's time to install the fixed pulley bracket. Use the long M10 bolts and bolt the fixed pulley bracket to the bottom 2 holes of the front support on the lat attachment. After both bolts have been installed, tighten them down with some 17mm wrenches. Next, we're going to install the fixed pulley. Grab the medium length M10 by 45mm bolts, washers, and nuts, and the small 3.5-inch pulley. Bolt it into place hand tight at this time. Now with the fixed pulley in position, it's time to install the swivel pulleys. Grab the same size pulleys, bolts, washers, and nuts, and install the left and right swivel pulleys. Once the swivel pulleys have been installed, go ahead and grab one more of the same size bolts, pulleys, washers, and nut. Bolt the pulley to the floating pulley assembly, and then put it aside for later. Next, we're going to install the cable on the cam using the small M10 by 25mm bolt, washers, and nut. We're going to install it on the farthest forward hole on the cam. Next, grab the other end of the cable, then thread it up and over the swivel pulley. Get the cable in the groove of the pulley, then feed the cable through the floating pulley assembly. Next, thread the cable with the floating pulley assembly behind the front support and in front of the lat attachment cables. Then thread the cable up through the bottom of the other swivel pulley, then bolt it into the front hole of the cam. We're going to leave the nuts and bolts hand tight for now, just in case we need to adjust them later. Next, we need to unhook the bottom cable of the lat attachment from the tab on the front support. Next, we're going to wrap the hanging cable around the fixed pulley, then thread the cable up behind the fixed pulley and clip it onto the floating pulley assembly. Make sure that the pulley in the floating pulley assembly's groove is seated on the cable. The weight carriage should be hanging about 1/2 inch above the base on the lat attachment. You should be able to push it down and make the stopper hit the base. Now it's time to tighten down the cams, pulleys, and other bolts that we haven't tightened down before. With everything tight, it's time to grab the 2 last long M10 bolts and washers and the back pad. Put a bolt through the back of the front support, then hang the back pad on the bolt and screw it in. Once you've got one bolt started, get the other bolt started, then tighten both by hand. Once both bolts are snug, go ahead and tighten them down with some 17mm wrenches. Finally, install your Deltec Fitness decal. Thank you for choosing Deltec Fitness.